Good afternoon from Bali, everyone. It's Anifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about subtle energies. So, again, remembering that the body is at a gross level, it's something that we can see. Things that we can sense are a little bit more gross energies in terms of I can see food, but I can smell food too, I can taste food. So that's senses that are at a gross level. But I can think about a food that I really like and be able to smell it even though it's not around me. So we can see that the mind has an ability to actually use this subtle energy to actually create something or remember something or be concerned about something too. But today I wanted to talk about how important this subtle energy is, because we've talked about the whole waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state, and I wanted to make sure that people understand how powerful subtle energy is. Oftentimes people feel that when I'm doing something, then it's worthwhile or it makes me worthy because I can show I've done this. I can have this title, I have this name, I have this reputation, and this is the space that I work from, and people know me. All of that stuff is more gross level. And then there's a subtle energy of all of the energy that it took to get to that level is subtle. That came from the mind, it came from thoughts, it came from that creative space. And then there's something even before that, that of course I would link with spiritual energy and soul energy, but it's this very subtle energy, we'll say, from the causal space that then leads to the thoughts that come through the mind, and then to the physical manifestation. We know we hear this word of manifestation a lot. I know that I've done a couple of videos some years ago, in fact, about the unmanifest to manifest sort of idea, and manifestation has become such a buzzword these days that I thought that you could look at it from this perspective and see how that might help you to understand and to work from energies of what we think, what we speak, and what we do. But I thought I'd start today's video in terms of quotations with this quote from the Upanishads. And it says, "The subtle energies of your food become your mind. The subtle energies from your food become your mind." And many people have heard of this idea. Now, I'm not vegetarian, but I do know that many people would understand that the stress that an animal might be in when it's living and then is slaughtered, killed, utilized for food, is the energy that's also in the food that we're eating. So many people know this. Others would also know that the energy that people cook with, even vegetarian food, are the subtle energies that are carried in that food. Even a farmer, how much love they're putting into the work that they're doing is part of the subtle energy that also comes through the food. That subtle energy does get digested, as we know, and I can't imagine the Upanishads were written so long ago, and yet in that, to talk about the subtle energies of your food become your mind, this idea is also reflected in both Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, and logic. We would know that anything that is affected by a particular energy that is not so loving will also be carrying that energy. So we can see this for a human. If they've been affected by energy or are being affected by energy that's not so loving, they might be very not happy, I might say frustrated, could be irritable. And it could be a child or it could be an adult who's still holding that energy, which is why clearing up some emotional space and clearing up some things that might hold the mind back from being in a free space is really helpful. And you know that I strongly encourage mental and emotional healing. But our foods matter, and subtle energies. Again, I won't focus on food, but I'd like you to know that that food is what every single day we're eating. So it's a good space to understand that even if we don't know the farmer who's been working on the crops or with the animals that we may be ingesting, it doesn't matter. We can also put energy into the food before we start eating. And you know, there was a time that many people were saying a prayer before they'd eat, and some people still do at special occasions, especially. So whether in Bali or in North America, I know in North America it's very much about Easter and Christmas time, where people actually do sometimes, many times, take time to actually say a prayer. If someone's actually in a location of a church or a temple, they might actually be encouraged either by a holy person to have a meditation or prayer before some ritual, and that's good too. But how many people are really in that space of, oh, I really care, I'm really grateful for this food? So I'm saying it because, I'm eating and I'm going to say a prayer before this Sunday meal or Sunday dinner, and I've linked it with, Sunday's an important day, and so I say, okay, thank you God for this food. But is it excuse me, is it really a heartfelt thank you and appreciation, that really meaningful space of it matters, that wow, these are the blessings that are now coming into my system, and I add to the blessings by putting that intention into the food that I eat. So I, of course, encourage this for all of us. It's a simple place, but it's something that we all do regularly in terms of eating. And even if you're not eating a very healthy food, why not bless the fact that you're eating a food? So that is such a blessing to be grateful for. So then there was another quotation that I came across, and I wanted to focus today on our understanding that subtle energy is very powerful. This subtle energy is the start of everything. So imagine that if I want to feed happiness into my system, and I feed this intention into, I'm so happy that I'm eating because I'm grateful for eating, or I'm just happy to be eating, and this is such a good energy to share into the food that I'm actually eating, which is fantastic. That becomes what we're ingesting. That becomes the energy that comes through us, through our subtle energy, which is our mind. And then this quotation I thought was really great to share because it's by a physicist. He was a Nobel Prize winner, and it's Max Planck. And he says, in all my research, I have never come across matter. To me, the term matter implies a bundle of energy which is given form by an intelligent spirit. Now imagine this physicist, highly scientific, not necessarily religious per se, though he called himself religious but did not follow something specifically. It is religious to actually be appreciative for all that we see and know that there's so much that we don't know or see. It is to understand that there is a spiritual dimension that cannot really be explained and yet is seen in everything that we experience. So that awareness, that even from the science perspective, there's so much understanding of there is a spiritual component. We might not be able to explain it or define it, and of course we know that science is actually looking at these things right now to try to explain it. And Max Planck was actually the person who discovered quanta, and so of course from quanta came things like quantum physics, and this whole idea of there's so much more that's happening than what we can actually see. When we actually see it, it's been a long time that things have been happening. And I thought I would share the example that I had heard that I thought might help anyone who's trying to understand, well, when I see something physically, it seems real to me, but when I don't see, of course we don't see gravity, but we know that it exists because of our experience with it. But if we think of a glass of water, and we can see that if we put it into a freezer, it turns into like ice. That all of that water turned into ice, and that ice, we can see it's got a substance, it's got a temperature to it, it's got a form, and then we can have it sit out under the sun. Now this temperature, this form of this ice, if I'm holding it, I know that it can melt in my hands from my own temperature affecting it, but it affects me. If I say I put that ice glass, or just that ice that was in the glass, onto a table, in no time, but especially with the sun or heat, it's going to start melting. And as it melts, we know that water spreads out. So here was the ice cube in this limited space, and we look at an ice cube that's melting is now in a larger space. It's affecting more. Now more area is affected by that water. And then we can think about heat being on that water for even longer, and that water turns into vapor and goes into the sky and turns into our clouds too. And we know that this happens with ocean water. We know that this happens with lakes, and this is the whole process that happens. But imagine all of those water molecules are now dispersing and expanding, which means now they are affecting even more. So I'm hoping that this is an idea that you can utilize for yourself, that when we are here in our form, we are affecting things. We can speak about things, we can be present in a particular area, but there's only so much space that our physical form can be in, and certainly not two spaces at once in physical. In terms of when we spread out a bit, we certainly know with social media today that people spread out a bit, that, you know, this is what is important to me, this is the work that I do, or this is the places that I've been to, or this is the food that I eat, or whatever it is. Many more people become aware of these things. And then there's a subtle space. And what's interesting is in the subtle space, no words are needed. And that is truly a spiritual space. Now, in that space would be the space of meditation or of prayer, of intention, and all of those things no one can really see. But each person who's practicing knows exactly what they're thinking, what they think of most, if they have a mindful attention to what it is. I thought that I would make sure that you know that in that space, many humans have moved into more worries, more grief, more anger, more frustration, more hurriedness. I certainly know that here, everywhere, I actually do try to get people to just focus on being present in the moment. And, you know, I've spoken about this for years, but today more than ever, I really feel that people aren't really even listening to each other. So all over the world, that two people can be having a conversation, and you can see that one's just kind of waiting till the other finishes so they can say what they want to say. Now they might say, oh, I'm really sorry that's happening, but soon it goes into, and this is happening for me. Or it could be about, oh, I heard all of this and I'm sharing this with you, and it's like, oh, I heard all of this. So it's comparing and judging, and a lot of that energy is happening, gossiping. And then in the background, there could be a bit of jealousy, there could be a little bit of background frustration, there could be no speaking. And in the no speaking is the most powerful space, again, silence. And only a person, each individual person, needs to know what is running through the mind, because many times it's things that are not so easy. It's not usually the last fun and exciting thing that happened, or the next fun and exciting thing that's happening right now, or it's usually about, I really didn't like that this has happened. And for us to have a mindful attention of this mind will go there, because the mind wants to solve things. It wants to solve problems. And if I don't have a problem, then boy, you know, what do I do? So understanding this subtle space and then mindfully directing it into something more beneficial for ourselves, for our own mental healing, and for the world around us, because that subtle energy is moving into all of the space around us. So just like the vapor that we're talking about in terms of water, we have energy that flows from us that is affecting many, many around us, and I'd like to say all over the world too. So I thought I'd share this quotation too. This is by Nikki Rowe, and it says, "We are in a constant state of energy before matter. If you want true healing, work through the inner clutter." Work through the inner clutter is so important, and it sounds so easy that, oh yeah, you know, I've worked through, I used to have concerns like 5 years ago, but now I've worked through that inner clutter. Working through the inner clutter is the day by day, a moment by moment experience. And it's only in the now that we have our greatest power. In the now, if I recognize that, oh, I see that this mind is worried about this. In the now, if I push that mind into, and this is the good, even with that worry, I'm not pushing away worry. I'm aware that there's worry, and then I push it away to focus on, I'm also aware that this is really good. And if I can mindfully direct my mind, this makes all the difference, because even just that intention to shift takes a big step. And as we do this more regularly, it becomes more of our lifestyle. So I wanted to plant that seed. At the same time, I came across this beautiful, I'm going to say poem, and I have no idea who actually wrote it, but I guess in terms of a reference, it's just at the bottom of this poem or quotation or reading. It just says all things beautiful, and I just thought it really applied to this particular video, and wanted to share it with you so that hopefully it leaves you some space to reflect from, because it's really beautiful. And I will write it under this video. I'd love for you to reflect on it deeply, and if it resonates with you, fantastic. At least let the mind think about it and reflect, and just let your spirit actually see what it means for you. So here it says, I am made of energy. I will always exist. Whatever happens in this life is a vehicle to move me along, not a beginning or an end. No matter what the ego tells me, no matter what my body feels. And I love these sorts of things. I hope you'll hear these words. Those are merely experiences that I need to feel, to achieve what I came here to do, to be and experience. On some level, I already know everything that needs to be known. I don't remember it all right now because it would prevent me from the experience of the here and now. When I seek my truth, it will all come back to me. There is nothing to fear. There is infinite love here. All that glows divinely from, all that is glows divinely from within me. And this idea, I think you may have heard speakers, whether we think of Joe Dispenza, we think of Esther Hicks, or whether we think of Upanishads, all talk about the same thing, that the eternal energy in us, all of us, is always there. It's always glowing. It's always present. Alignment with that energy is what many may seek to do through meditation. I certainly encourage it. And again, we use that term alignment very loosely these days, or very frequently. When we're aligning with that divine energy, whether I call it with my higher self, whether I call it with God, whether I call it with the universe, this is that space of divinity within me too that I'm aligning with. And it's the space of divinity in the universe. So again, there is infinite love here, and to recognize that we all go through things that are not so easy. And as we align, it becomes just a little easier. And you'll have to trust me on that, but I do hope that you'll reflect on the words and see, when you're meditating, if you're meditating, are you in that alignment? And is it giving you the peace that meditation is really destined to do if you are looking for alignment? I hope you are. I wish you a well-aligned day ahead. I hope you remember, transform your mind and transform your life, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.